Hello everyone, I'm Chief Meteorologist Marina Jurica. I know it's been quite an eventful evening. Many of you around 8:20, approximately over 2 hours ago, felt the earthquake that once again hit the Ridgecrest area and the Searles Valley fault line region. Ridgecrest got hit yesterday as well with a 6.4 earthquake, and it got hit once again this evening with a 7.1 preliminary magnitude coming in from the United States Geological Survey. So I have mapped out here that area of Ridgecrest, which you can see here very nicely. At the point of the earthquake this evening, we saw basically 11 miles away from that Ridgecrest region get hit once again, and then gradually, because it's about 6.6 miles deep, we saw that extension feeling all the way once again from Las Vegas down into Los Angeles and even over the Sierra into the Fresno Valley area. Now, the reason that it was so deep, 6.6 miles down into the core of the earth, and also the reason that it was a 7.1 magnitude is why it was felt in such a broad radius across the entire region. And so this epicenter, which is Ridgecrest, in the Searles Valley, has a fault line, and it's basically the North American plate and the Pacific plate. And a lot of you on social media this evening have been talking about the San Andreas fault. This is not associated with the San Andreas fault. This is another fault line which has multiple stress point fractures in it. And the fact that it's been 20 years or so since Southern California has seen a major or severe earthquake of this event, what happens between these plates is a lot of stress is built up, a lot of stress between the plates, and this is considered a strike slip earthquake. And if you can see this here, I've literally made some homemade bricks so that it can make it a little bit more understandable for you. But the North American plate is on top of the Pacific plate, and what happens with a strike slip fault is basically they rub together like this. That's exactly what's happening with this fault line. And so because of this and the fact that it's strike slipping, that's the type of fault. There's 3 different types of earthquake movement. You see that horizontal rubbing, and that stress builds, and over time, and we're talking 20 years since we've had a major event, that stress continues and it continues to build. And even if you go to this area in Ridgecrest, and if any of that fault line was able to crack to the surface, you're actually able to see that horizontal fault line in the ground, and that tells you right away that it's a strike slip event. But we know that that's exactly what happens. So that's one out of 3 different times that can happen. And with a strike slip event like this, that's how you can feel that rolling. And that is exactly why a lot of you in Fresno even could feel more of a rolling event. That's very, very conducive to the feeling you get with a strike slip fault. And so the North American plate is on top of the Pacific plate, and they're basically rubbing, and that stress just continues to build over time. And usually we have an event at 6.0 every 3 to 5 years. So can you imagine? It's been building for about the last 20 years, and this is not the San Andreas fault. That's what a lot of people have been asking. This is the North American plate rubbing against the Pacific plate. And so that is what we saw. Now, a foreshock, which is an earthquake that happens before the main shock, is what happened yesterday at 6.4. Looks like the main shock was 7.1 today. We've had 1,400 shocks since the one yesterday. Minor, anywhere from a magnitude of 1 to 5. And then as we head into the next subsequent days, we'll continue to see aftershocks. More than likely, this was the big event. We have about a 3 to 5% chance, once again, so it could happen for it to be another big event. But it would be in this affected area where we just have so much of that stress that's trying to balance itself out. So think about standing on one foot, all right? When you stand on one foot, you feel very unbalanced. You feel very uneven. So you're going to want to place the other foot down so that you feel that balance. That's what's happening with these plates. They're continually, through the time of history since our beginning, trying to get balance. And so you constantly have this friction that happens deep down in the earth that's trying to create balance. So we've had a shift of events now over the last 36 hours. Because of that earthquake, we are going to continue to see it trying to reach that balance, that equilibrium. And so that's why we're going to continue to see this energy create some aftershocks. I hope that makes a little bit of sense to you. I'm going to try to answer some of your questions right now because I know I've had a lot of people asking me questions throughout the evening. It's not the San Andreas fault. That's the first question I see coming up here. And that is another fault. But a lot of people ask me, if you see a big fault line like the one with the North American plate and the Pacific plate start to become active, does it make the San Andreas fault active? It is a possibility. The likelihood of it is slim with this event, but it is a possibility that there's so much shaking and rattling going on that it could possibly affect the San Andreas fault. But right now, this is the fault line that we are talking about. So I'm trying to pull up the questions here right now for you, and we can see here that we've got, I'm trying to put up the questions here, and I know that you guys have got that coming up here. Oh, are we? Okay, that's why, because I'm on the Facebook Live post. So here we've got the 7.1 earthquake that happened at 8:20, and this is the Searless Valley sequence. So all of these earthquakes are happening along the same fault line. They're not happening along different fault lines. It's all the same, trying to find balance. So with 7.1 today, as we head into subsequent days, we'll continue to see aftershocks. Looks like the foreshock was yesterday at 6.4. The main shock, which is usually the main event, 7.1. There was a chance that that was going to happen, that we were going to be able to see an event that was even greater than the one that happened yesterday, and then we'll see subsequent faults as we head into the upcoming days. 1,400 shocks we've seen so far with this system, and like I said, it's just trying to find a balance. It's trying to find that point, that stress that has occurred now because of the rubbing, the strike fault slip between these two faults. And so once it starts to settle down, is it going to continue to be active? Of course. We live on a planet that has these fault lines throughout the entire world, and they're going to continue to be active. And so we're going to have this full report for you coming up at 11. I just wanted to give you really the nuts and bolts of the science of it. I know there's a lot of people in that area without power. There's a lot of people getting sent out, so we're going to be able to give you a much more full report about that. But a lot of you tonight have reached out to me to talk about exactly what's going on. Is this the big one? More than likely, the big one's going to occur on the San Andreas fault. That's the fault that has the most stress and the most energy. This fault line, you can see, it can still continue to give you a lot of issues, and of course it can give you a lot of power and a lot of that stress that continues. It's just a different fault line. So the fact that we've been inactive for such a long period of time just proves that there's a lot of stress in these fractures and in these joints. And so as they continue to move and try to find that balance, like I was saying before, on 1 foot to 2 feet, they will continue to move and create these aftershocks and earthquakes. The most important thing you can do is be aware. Thanks for reaching out for me tonight, and thanks for asking all of your science questions, because the more we know, the more we're going to be able to improve not only our warning signs for future earthquakes so that we have a little more time to know when they're coming, but that you're aware and that you know what you need to do to keep you and your family safe. We're going to have the very latest on CBS 4711. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I hope that you weren't too scared by those aftershocks that we continue to see coming in from Ridgecrest. Have a good night.